When are Clemson and FSU leaving the ACC? It's a question that's not only on the minds of their own fans, but on fans within the Athletic Coast Conference and really fans of all Power 5 conferences across the country. Florida State and Clemson are two of the premier brands remaining that aren't in the Big Ten or the SEC. And so I believe that everyone associated with conference realignment would like to see where those two dominoes fall because they may be a major linchpin in what happens going forward. Greg Swaim on Twitter posted this week that the ACC will have their grant of rights challenged by Florida State and Clemson. He also included that they may be challenged by others, almost like a group, which we may have told you about before, upcoming soon. He gave us a timeline, which is the first time we've ever really gotten anything like that yet with conference realignment. Most of the news has just come and gone. Gave us a timeline that it would be before the new football season begins. It's obviously April now. Football starts in late August, early September. So we're talking within the next couple of months, Florida State, Clemson, and potentially others will challenge the ACC grant of rights. He then doubled down on it by saying that this week he would be quoting someone who was his source when their official story dropped. So let's recap. Florida State and Clemson, possibly others, are going to challenge the ACC's grant of rights before the season starts, and we may even get a little bit more information on it as a story comes out this week. It's Sunday when I'm putting this video out. Sounds like we could get some movement on this week. Now, it's a rumor. Greg Swaim has been in the business for 35 years. He was right on a lot of conference realignment stuff years ago, and people said, man, this guy's crazy. What's he talking about? He's been pretty spot on at times. It's a rumor. Could be completely false. But I do think it's interesting to note, and it lines up very much with what we've told you in a previous video. What do you think? As we're talking about it, when do you think we're going to see some movement? Do me a favor, comment below. Let's get a lot of interaction on this video. The last time we did a conference realignment video, I didn't ask for likes. I didn't ask for subscriptions. If you guys want to give those, that's great. What I like is comments and shares. That expands the reach of the video. If you're a fan of a team other than Florida State or Clemson in the ACC, again, this is good for you to share as well because I think ultimately it is going to help your team to get out of this dying conference. Comment below with what you think. If you would be so kind as to share the video with your friends, your social media, that'd be appreciated as well. How can FSU, Clemson, and others challenge the grant of rights? Well, we're going to talk about that just a little bit. We're going to share some updates based on what's happened since we last talked about conference realignment. And we're also going to share some insight that we've learned since then near the end of the video, so stay tuned. First, how can the Noles and Tigers and any of their comrades potentially challenge the grant of rights? Well, number one, they can do exactly what we talked about in our last video. They can set up a group, likely with Miami and North Carolina, to recruit 4 other teams to leave the ACC. Once you have 8 teams leaving the ACC, it would effectively dissolve the conference. The top 4 teams will likely end up in the SEC and the Big Ten if we had to guess. Let's say Florida State and Clemson, for example's sake, end up in the SEC. Let's say Miami and North Carolina end up in the Big Ten. They're going to make a lot more money from that. Well, your next 4 teams that leave the ACC are probably going to make a little bit less money. Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, or whoever those top 4 teams would be that would make it into a big-time conference like the SEC or Big Ten would agree to pay the revenue gap difference between what a team like, say, Virginia would make in the ACC and the Big 12. Now, if Virginia goes to the Big 10 or the SEC as well, that'd be 1 less team. We broke down all the numbers. I'll link that video above right now. I'll also put it in the description, and I'll link it at the end of the video. We broke down the numbers. If you haven't seen that video, the numbers work, and the math is astronomical. A team like Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, whoever was to make it in those upper-tier conferences would make so much more money by covering that $10 million gap of revenue between the ACC and the Big 12 for now. They would make almost, I believe the numbers were about $500 million over the course of the contract. It would be well worth it to foot somebody else's bill in another conference while your team was in the SEC or Big 10. We actually use the SEC numbers, which are smaller, to emphasize the point. If you were to make the Big 10, you'd be in an even better position, and the measly $10 a year that you had to pay to one of the lower 4 teams that left the ACC would certainly be worth it. Just before we get to the next way that you could potentially see Florida State, Clemson, and others challenge the grant of rights, I want to give some love to our friends over at Sativadol. Sativadol is a CBD company that I'm proud to work with. Their sister company, Gramco, we've told you guys about a ton, but you need to go get your CBD products from sativadol.com. You can use TJ25 to save 25% off at checkout. They've got a wonderful roll-on that I've used for my knee after long runs. I've used it on my ankles after we ran a half marathon. My wife's used it on her back. They have a brand new CBD muscle gel that is way stronger. It is phenomenal. I got mine in last week, and let me tell you, this stuff works. It is so, so good. Go check them out, sativadol.com, for any of your bumps, bruises, aches, pains. It's for the athlete in all of us. You can go to thegramco.com or sativadol.com to find it. If you've used Gramco before, they are a sister company of Gramco. They will get you taken care of. They've got phenomenal products. If you've used the Gramco, you know that already. If you haven't used the Gramco because you're not really into enhancing, but you do have some bumps, bruises, aches, pains, go check out sativadol.com. They do a phenomenal job. I appreciate them for their support, and you guys go check them out. On screen right now, you can see they even have products for your pets, so go check them out today. You won't be disappointed. Again, TJ25 for 25% off. The second way they can challenge the grant of rights is by challenging it from a legal perspective. Doing this is certainly an interesting angle. It's a contract that you signed. But doing it as just one team would certainly be something that I don't think anyone would want to embark on at this current moment. But if you're Florida State and Clemson, and then you maybe grab a couple other people to go in with you, challenging it from a legal perspective with the top two teams plus in the conference is not the worst idea. In fact, I think that's probably the stronger move because you've got your two top dogs in Florida State and Clemson being the ones to go in on a joint effort to challenge the conference's grant of rights. I know personally that Florida State and other schools have been hiring attorneys. They've been having their in-house counsel work on this grant of rights meticulously, strategically, to try their very best to challenge it. You just have to wonder what the ACC's response would be if Florida State, Clemson, and others were to challenge it legally soon. The last way that I believe you could potentially see this challenged is through negotiation. I think this is the least likely. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is my thought here, and so we'll roll with it. And again, I'm not proposing that this is how it happens, but I do think that the ACC owns the rights. They're probably not going to let anybody out of anything. But I think if the ACC thought they were in danger of losing either to dissolution, point number one, or legally in the courts, then I think they might be willing to settle. I don't think this is going to happen. It did kind of happen with Maryland. They did negotiate a buyout, and they did get out. I think the ACC is going to dig their heels in pretty deep here and not go this route. But I do suppose it's a possibility. If they felt the pressure, if they felt like this was their only way, maybe you could see the ACC do this. Florida State has been very, very active in researching the numbers, in doing everything that they could, the legalities of getting out of the ACC. They've been very intentional in running a campaign to prove their brand and how attractive they are. We've made several videos about this, from them playing in Ireland and the money that will produce, to the TV eyes that see Florida State and how they're number one in the conference on that, to how they paid Mike Norvell top 10 salary in the country and proved to the SEC that they're ready to play big boy football. I think, we've talked about all angles of this. Alford asking his board of trustees about what it would take to get out of the conference from a buyout perspective, from a media rights perspective, and things like that, and making that very public. Florida State has been on the forefront of this. And Michael Alford, who we're showing on screen now, is very, very aggressive when it comes to buildings, coaches, salaries, fundraising, you name it. He wants the best of the best, and there's no reason to think that he won't be the same way here with conference realignment. I think that him joining forces with Clemson's AD, potentially Dan down there in Miami, other big-time ADs in this conference, is the way to go, and I think that you could see movement on this soon. How legit is the Greg Swaim rumors? I don't know. We'll find out. I think it's interesting that he doubled down, and he said that we would find out more this week. I think there's a pretty good chance we do see something come out before the season starts. Michael Alford, Florida State's athletic director, is not going to get caught lacking here, and I won't be surprised to see some other teams join in as well. We're going to do everything we can to keep you updated on any and all news that comes out, even closely related to conference realignment, because it is one of the hottest topics in college football right now. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you've learned something today and if you want to stay updated. We may have another angle developing on this for FSU fans pretty specifically, and really all the fans of the ACC, but we're still researching that. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. It could come out tomorrow, maybe Tuesday. Still, to me, the best scenario is to dissolve the conference. Want to know how Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and UNC can make that happen? Do me a favor and click right here.